My world didn't end with a bang. It ended with a spreadsheet. One that my fiancé, Marcus, slid across our small kitchen table on a Tuesday afternoon. The kind of gray, forgettable day that doesn't warn you it's about to become a memory seared into your brain forever. His finger tapped on a single line item, a number he'd typed in bold. $600. And next to it, 2 words that shattered everything I thought we were building. Leo's contribution. Leo is my son. He's 16. And that money is the last thing his father ever gave him. It's not a contribution. It's a ghost's embrace. It's the echo of a promise made by a man who died a decade too soon. And Marcus, the man who had just put a ring on my finger, was looking at it like it was just another utility bill. He looked at me, a proud smile on his face, as if he'd just solved the world's most complex puzzle. "See," he said, his voice brimming with satisfaction. "This way, the new house is easy. We all pitch in. We're a family now." A family? The word hung in the air, suddenly feeling alien and sharp. I looked from the spreadsheet to his expectant face, and for the first time in our long, tangled history, I didn't see the man I loved. I saw a stranger with a calculator for a heart. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't just about money. It was about everything. For those of you who have built a life on your own, brick by painful brick, you know what it's like. You become a universe of one, a self-contained ecosystem of strength and survival. Being a single parent isn't a tragedy. It's a masterclass in resilience. My name is Alara. I'm 39, and for the last 11 years, my world has revolved around my son, Leo. His father, David, was the kind of man who could light up a room with a single laugh. He was my rock, my North Star. When we lost him to a sudden heart attack, Leo was only 5. The world tilted on its axis, and I was left spinning, trying to hold the pieces of our shattered life together. The grief was a physical weight, a constant ache in my chest, but I had to keep going, for Leo. Then, about a month after the funeral, a letter arrived, an official-looking envelope from the Social Security Administration. I opened it with trembling hands, expecting more paperwork, more bureaucracy. Inside, it explained that Leo was entitled to survivor benefits, a monthly check. It was $1,100. I remember sitting on the floor, the letter in my hand, and just weeping. It wasn't about the money itself. It was the message behind it. It was David from beyond the grave still taking care of his boy. It was his final act of love, a safety net woven from his hard work and his devotion. That money became sacred to me. It wasn't mine. It was a trust. It was David's legacy for our son. From that day forward, I managed it meticulously. I opened a separate account. Every month, the $1,100 would go in. I decided early on that Leo needed to learn about responsibility. So when he got older, we made a deal. Half of it, $550, was his. He used it for his clothes, his hobbies, for going out with friends. He learned to budget, to save for something he wanted. He was good with it, responsible. The other half, another $550, went straight into a high-yield savings account, untouched, waiting for him, for his future. For college, a car, a down payment on a place of his own someday. It was his asterisk launchpad into the world, funded by the father he barely got to know. Have you ever had to create a new life from ashes? It's a long, lonely road, but Leo and we made it work. We weren't rich, but we were happy. We had our routines, our inside jokes. Our little 2-bedroom apartment was our fortress. It was enough. Marcus came into the picture a few years later. He was charming, persistent. He has 3 kids of his own, though only his 14-year-old daughter, Chloe, would be living with us. Our relationship was complicated. A dance of on-again, off-again that spanned years. There were good times, moments I let myself believe this could be it. But there were always little things, small dissonances I chose to ignore. A comment here, a judgment there. But recently, things had been different. He seemed more committed, more serious. He was there for Leo's soccer games. He helped me fix the leaky faucet I'd been ignoring for months. He was selling me a dream, a big, beautiful house, a blended family, a future where I didn't have to do everything on my own. When he proposed under the string lights in our favorite park, I cried. I said yes. I let myself believe the dream was real. I let my guard down. That was my first mistake. The house hunting was a blur of excitement. Marcus had his heart set on a place in a newer development. It was beautiful, I couldn't deny it. 4 bedrooms, a big backyard, a finished basement. It was also expensive. The rent was $2,500 a month, a huge leap from my little apartment. "We can do it," he assured me, wrapping his arm around my shoulders as we stood in the gleaming, empty kitchen. Together. I felt a flutter of anxiety. My salary as a pediatric nurse is steady, but it's not extravagant. "It's a lot, Marcus," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Don't worry," he said, that confident smile spreading across his face. "I've already run the numbers. I've got a plan." And that brings us back to the kitchen table, back to the spreadsheet, his plan. He explained it like he was a CEO presenting a quarterly report. Cool, detached, logical. "It's simple," he began. "I pay $950, you pay $950, that brings us to $1,900. The rent is $2,500. We take $600 from Leo's check to cover the rest. See? Perfect. And the other $500 from his check. We can put it into a savings account for him. It's a win-win." I stared at him. The words didn't compute. It felt like he was speaking a foreign language. From Leo's check," I stammered. "Marcus, that's his money." He chuckled, a dismissive little sound that made the hairs on my arms stand up. "Ilara, we're going to be a family. It's all our money now. We pool our resources, that's how it works. His money helps the household that's housing him. It's only fair." Fair, the word tasted like poison. Fair is you and me, the adults, covering the adult bills. That money is from his father asterisk. It's for his asterisk care, his future. It's not a slush fund to help us afford a bigger house we don't need. His smile vanished. His eyes hardened. "So you expect me to subsidize your son? I'm already bringing my daughter into this. We're supposed to be a team. You're being selfish, Ilara. You're thinking of it as your son's money instead of our family's resources. It's a very single mom way of thinking. It's time to move past that." A single mom way of thinking. He said it like it was a disease, like the very resilience that had kept my son and me afloat for a decade was now a character flaw. The insult was so profound, so deeply cutting. It left me breathless. He wasn't just dismissing my concerns. He was devaluing my entire existence, my entire journey as a mother. This is not about family. This is a hostile takeover. That was the thought that screamed through my mind. This was my first clear signal, a tagline for this new, terrifying chapter. We went back and forth for an hour. I tried to explain the sacredness of that money. I told him about the promise I made to myself, to David's memory. He just saw it as a stubborn refusal to be a team player. He saw $1,100 a month and saw a problem he could solve. He didn't see a father's last gift. He didn't see my son's future. He saw a line item on a budget. By the end of it, I felt physically ill. He was angry, frustrated. "Fine," he said, standing up and slamming the laptop shut. "Think about it, but if we can't agree on something this basic, I don't know how we're going to make a marriage work." He left, the door closing with a quiet click that sounded like a gunshot in the sudden silence. I sat there at the table, the phantom image of his spreadsheet burned into my eyes. The dream he had sold me was dissolving, revealing a cold, transactional reality beneath. He didn't see me as a partner. He saw me as a financial asset. And worse, he saw my son, my beautiful, grieving boy, as an income stream. That night, I couldn't sleep. The question wasn't anymore, am I wrong? The question became, who is this man I agreed to marry? The human mind has a funny way of protecting itself. It papers over the cracks, smooths out the rough edges of people we want to love. For years, I had ignored the little red flags with Marcus. The way he was always a little too concerned with appearances. The way he talked more about his commissions than his passions. The way his generosity always felt conditional. Now that spreadsheet had ripped the wallpaper off, and I was staring at a wall full of cracks. Why was he so fixated on this $600? His job as a sales manager paid well, or so I thought. He drove a nice car, wore expensive watches. He always presented himself as incredibly successful. So why was a few $100s a month the breaking point for our entire future? It didn't add up. And so I did something I had never done before. I decided to stop taking his word for it. I decided to look for facts. I wasn't going to hack his email or hire a private investigator. I was just going to look at the things that are available to anyone, the things that leave a public trace. This is not about family. This is a hostile takeover. The thought echoed in my mind, but now it wasn't a cry of despair. It was a call to action. I started with a simple search. The public records for our county. It felt dirty, like a betrayal. But was it more of a betrayal than him trying to siphon my dead husband's legacy from my child? I didn't think so. My hands trembled as I typed his full name into the court records database. I clicked search, and the cracks began to spiderweb across the wall. First, a civil suit from 2019. A business partner suing him over an unpaid loan for a side venture that went bust. It was settled out of court, but the initial filing amount was staggering, far more than he'd ever mentioned. He told me he lost a little bit on a bad investment. The records suggested he'd been financially decimated. Dated document number 1, May 12, 2019. Case file number 734 CV19 8821. My heart started pounding. What else did I know? Next, I looked up property records. The home he currently owned, the one he was planning to sell before we moved into our new rental. It had 2 liens against it from the IRS for unpaid taxes, from 2020 and 2021. They weren't huge amounts, but they were there. A pattern of financial mismanagement was beginning to emerge. This wasn't a man who was fiscally responsible. This was a man juggling debt. Dated documents 2 and 3. IRS lien notices filed on March 2nd, 2021 and February 18th, 2022. I felt a cold dread creep up my spine. This whole time, he had performed the role of the successful, stable provider. The man who was going to rescue me from the financial pressures of single motherhood. But what if the opposite was true? What if he was the one who was drowning? The final piece of the puzzle came from a different kind of public record. His divorce decree. Divorces are often messy, but they are also incredibly detailed financial documents. I had to go down to the county clerk's office for that one. I felt like a spy, my heart in my throat as I requested the file. The clerk handed me a thick folder, and I found a quiet corner in the records room. I flipped through the pages, my eyes scanning the dense legal text. And there it was, in black and white, a stipulation in the spousal and child support agreement. A balloon payment was due to his ex-wife on the sale of his current home, to pay her out for her share of the equity. And on top of that, a clause stating that his alimony payments would increase significantly if his declared household income rose above a certain threshold. Suddenly, it all made a sickening kind of sense. He wasn't just trying to lower his own rent contribution. He was trying to keep his declared contribution low. If he officially paid $950 a month, it kept his expenses looking manageable. The $600 from Leo's benefits would be off the books, an invisible subsidy. It wouldn't trigger the alimony clause. The beautiful new house wasn't for us. It was for his image. It was a stage, and he needed my son's inheritance to pay for the props. We're at the halfway point. I had the facts. I had the proof. And the final, soul-crushing conversation that ended everything is coming up next. I sat there in that dusty, silent records room, and I felt the last bit of love I had for him curdle into something cold and hard. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a different financial philosophy. This was a calculated, deliberate deception. He had looked at me, at my son, and had seen a solution to his problems. He had weaponized the idea of family to commit financial fraud against a child. Against my child. I made a copy of the divorce decree. The chain of custody was simple, from the county clerk's office to the library photocopier to my purse. This piece of paper was my proof. It was my liberation. I walked out of that building and took the deepest breath I had taken in years. The engagement ring on my finger suddenly felt like a handcuff. The dream wasn't real. It had never been real. It was a mirage he had constructed to lure me into solving his financial crisis. I drove home, and for the first time I felt no confusion, no sadness, just a quiet, roaring anger. He had underestimated me. He had seen a tired, single mom, and he had assumed I was desperate. He assumed I wouldn't check. He assumed I would be so grateful for the illusion of a family that I would sacrifice my son's future for it. He was wrong. I called him that evening. My voice was calm, steady. "Marcus, we need to talk about the budget again. Can you come over?" He arrived 20 minutes later, a look of weary impatience on his face, as if he were preparing for another round of my emotional and selfish arguments. He sat at the kitchen table, in the exact same spot where he had presented his spreadsheet of lies. I didn't bring out the spreadsheet. I brought out a single sheet of paper, a new budget, my budget. "I've been thinking," I began, my voice even. "You're right, we should be a team, so I've worked out a new plan for the house." He leaned forward, a flicker of triumph in his eyes. "Great, I knew you'd see it my way." "Not exactly," I said. I slid the paper across the table. "I did some research. That house is too expensive for us, for you and me, but I found another place, a 3-bedroom townhouse. The rent is $1,900 a month. It's in a great school district. It has a small yard for Chloe. It's perfect." He stared at the paper. $1,900, so we each pay $950, that's what I said. "Exactly," I said, meeting his gaze. "You pay $950, I pay $950. We the adults cover the rent, in full." I paused, letting the words hang in the air. "Leo's survivor benefits will not be part of our household budget, not $1. That money will continue to be managed exactly as it is now, half for his personal use, half for his long-term savings. It is not and will never be a line item." His face darkened. The mask of the charming fiancé was gone. "We've been over this, Alara. That townhouse is a step down. I need the space in the other house for work, for hosting." "For your image," I asked softly. "Is your image worth my son's security?" "This is ridiculous," he snapped, his voice rising. "It's $600. Why are you so obsessed with this? It's about the principle of us being a family." "No, it's not," I said, my voice dropping, becoming quiet and sharp as a shard of glass. "It's about the stipulation in your 2018 divorce decree that increases your alimony payments if your declared household income and expenditure ratio changes. It's about hiding assets. It's about the 2 IRS liens on your current property. It's about the civil suit you never told me the truth about. It's about you being in a financial hole, so deep you're willing to steal a child's inheritance to start climbing out." Silence. A thick, suffocating silence filled the room. The color drained from his face. He looked at me as if he'd never seen me before. He opened his mouth, then closed it. There was nothing to say. I had the facts, the dates, the proof. "What do you think he did? Do you think he apologized, confessed, begged for forgiveness?" "No," he got angry. A cornered animal, he lashed out. "You went behind my back," he snarled, his voice a low growl. "You investigated me. What is wrong with you? That is a complete violation of my trust." I almost laughed. The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. "Your trust," I replied, my voice dangerously calm. "You sat at this table and you drew up a plan to defraud my son. My son, Marcus, a boy who has already lost his father. You tried to turn his father's love into your private slush fund. You talked to me about trust. You don't know the meaning of the word." "This is not about family. This is a hostile takeover." I said the words out loud this time. "You're a user," I continued. "You saw me and Leo not as people to love, but as resources to exploit. You sold me a fantasy of a life together, but the fine print said my son had to pay for it. The deal is off." I stood up and walked to the door, opening it wide. "Get out of my house." He just stared at me, his face a mask of fury and shock. He had been so sure of his power over me, so sure of my desperation. He never imagined I would fight back. Not like this. "You're making a huge mistake, Alara," he said, his voice trembling with rage. "No," I said, looking him dead in the eye. "My mistake was saying yes. My mistake was ever letting you near my son. Now get out." He left, and this time the sound of the door closing wasn't a gunshot. It was a symphony. It was the sound of freedom. The aftermath was quiet. I blocked his number. I told our mutual friends that the engagement was off. I kept the explanation simple. We had a fundamental disagreement about finances. I didn't need to air the dirty laundry. The truth was my own. A week later, a box with the engagement ring was delivered to his office. I didn't include a note. The beautiful, expensive house was forgotten. The dream of a big, blended family dissolved. And you know what? I felt nothing but relief. It was like I had been holding my breath for years, and I could finally exhale. 2 months later, Leo and I found our own new place. It wasn't the big 4-bedroom house. It was a modest 2-bedroom condo in a quiet neighborhood. The rent was something I could comfortably afford on my own. It had a small balcony where I put up a planter box of herbs. Leo's new school was just a short bike ride away. One Saturday, we were unpacking the last of the boxes. We ordered pizza, put on some music, and just were. We were happy. Leo came over and gave me a hug, a rare thing for a 16-year-old boy. "I'm glad it's just us again, Mom," he said quietly. I held him tight. "Me too, buddy, me too." Later that night, after he'd gone to bed, I sat on our new balcony, looking up at the stars. I thought about the spreadsheet, about the lies, about the man I almost married. I didn't feel anger anymore. I didn't even feel sadness. I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Gratitude that he had shown me who he truly was before it was too late, before our lives were legally entangled, before my son's nest egg had been cracked open to pay for his deception. He thought my single mom mindset was a weakness. He was wrong. It was my superpower. It's what made me vigilant. It's what made me fiercely protective. It's what gave me the strength to slam the door on a future that was built on a lie. My life isn't a story of being left. It's a story of being left alone with the one person who matters most. Setting boundaries, especially with people you let into your heart, is one of the hardest things in the world. It feels like a battle. But sometimes it's not a battle. It's a rescue mission. You're not pushing them away. You're pulling yourself and the people you are sworn to protect to safety. Have you ever had to set a difficult financial boundary with family or a partner? Share your story in the comments below. You never know who needs to hear it. If this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button. We're building a community here that values strength and survival over false promises.